I have buried 8 babies already. Please give me one child that will live. I will do anything.
I can give you a child, but the child will belong to me one day. But listen carefully. The child must never see fire at night.
If the flame touches her skin, you will lose her forever.
Maria had buried 8 children already, and on the night she walked into the forest, the wind moved through the trees like something alive. Her feet were bare, her clothes torn by thorns, but she did not care. All she could think about was the 9th child growing inside her stomach. If this baby died too, she knew her heart would break completely. She reached the river that the villagers feared more than death. The water was black and silent, moving slowly like a giant snake resting in the dark. Spirit of the river, Maria called with a shaking voice. I am the woman whose children keep dying. I have buried 8 babies with my own hands. Please, give me a child that will live. For a moment nothing happened. The forest became so quiet that even the insects stopped singing. Then the water bubbled, slowly at first, then harder. A massive serpent rose from the river. Its body was thick like the trunk of a tree, and its scales shone green under the moonlight. Its eyes looked straight into Maria's soul. Why do you disturb the deep water, little woman? The serpent asked. Maria dropped to her knees in the mud. My babies keep dying. I cannot bury another child. Please help me. The serpent moved closer. The ground trembled as its body slid across the wet soil. I can give you a child that will live, it hissed. But nothing in this world is free. I will give you anything, Maria cried. The serpent's eyes glowed brighter. The child will carry my blood, it said slowly. When she becomes a woman, she will belong to the river. Maria hesitated for only a moment. I promise. The serpent continued. There is one more rule. The most important rule. Maria leaned forward. The child must never be seen by fire at night. No lamp. No flame. No torch. If fire touches her skin, her true nature will awaken, and she will return to the water forever. Maria nodded quickly. I swear it. The serpent slowly disappeared beneath the dark water, and the river became silent again. At that exact moment Maria felt a powerful kick inside her stomach. For the first time since she became pregnant, the baby moved strongly. Tears filled her eyes as she ran back to the village. Months passed, and when the day of birth arrived, Maria screamed through the night while the village midwife, Mama Grace, helped her inside the small clay house. Outside, her husband Daniel sat on a stool, staring at the ground. He had prayed too many times and buried too many tiny bodies to believe in miracles anymore. But suddenly a loud cry came from inside the house. A strong baby's cry. Mama Grace laughed in shock. She's alive. Daniel ran inside. Maria was holding a beautiful baby girl whose lungs were strong and whose tiny fingers held tightly onto her mother's hand. But just when everyone began celebrating, Maria felt another sharp pain. Mama Grace's face changed. Wait, she said quietly. There is another baby. Maria pushed again with all her strength. The second baby slid into Mama Grace's hands. But this baby did not cry. Mama Grace stared at the child in horror. Its hair shimmered with a strange silver color, almost like scales. Maria's heart froze. She remembered the serpent's words. The child will carry my blood. The first girl was named Anna. She grew up cheerful, loud, and loved by everyone in the village. She laughed often, ran through the fields, and followed her father everywhere. The second girl was named Lily. Lily was quiet and mysterious. Her beauty was strange and breathtaking. When people looked at her for too long, they felt uneasy without knowing why. Her skin was always cool, even on the hottest days. And sometimes when she walked near the river, snakes appeared silently from the grass and followed her before disappearing again. Maria kept the promise she made to the serpent. Every night their house remained completely dark. No lamps. No fire. No candles. Daniel complained many times. Why must we live like bats? He asked one evening. Maria forced a smile. The darkness helps the girls sleep. Daniel never understood, but he trusted his wife. Years passed quickly, and the two girls grew into young women. Anna was strong and confident, but she began noticing something she did not like. Everywhere they went, people admired Lily. Young men in the village looked at Lily with fascination. Even animals seemed drawn to her calm presence. Jealousy slowly began growing inside Anna's heart like a poisonous seed. One day she hissed quietly, "Everyone thinks you are special." Lily looked confused. "You are my sister. We are the same." But Anna did not believe it. One afternoon Lily walked into the forest to gather herbs and met a young hunter named James. James was tall, kind, and brave. His eyes were warm, and his voice made Lily feel safe in a way she had never felt before. They began meeting near the river every evening. James told her stories about hunting and traveling through distant forests. Lily listened and laughed softly. For the first time in her life, she felt like a normal girl. One evening James held her hand and said, "Lily, I want to marry you." Lily's heart raced. She remembered her mother's warning about the river spirit, but love was stronger than fear. Soon James visited her home with gifts, goats, and jars of palm wine. He asked Daniel for Lily's hand in marriage. The wedding happened quickly. Maria cried the entire time, not knowing whether her tears came from joy or fear. Before Lily left for her new home, Maria grabbed her hands tightly. "Remember one thing," she whispered. "Never let firelight touch your skin at night. No matter what happens." Lily nodded. For several weeks the marriage was peaceful. James loved Lily deeply, and they lived happily in his small house near the forest. But Anna visited often. And every time she saw them together, her jealousy grew stronger. One afternoon she arrived while Lily was at the market. James was fixing his hunting net. Anna walked closer slowly. "You love my sister very much," she said. James smiled. "She is the best thing that ever happened to me." Anna's eyes turned cold. "Then you deserve to know the truth." James looked confused. Anna leaned closer and whispered, "You think you married a woman. But you did not." James frowned. "What are you saying?" Anna smiled darkly. "Tonight when she sleeps, light a lamp. Hold the fire above her face. Then you will see the monster you married." James felt a chill run through his body. He tried to ignore her words, but doubt began creeping into his mind. That night Lily slept peacefully beside him. James sat quietly in the darkness. Anna's voice echoed in his mind. Slowly he lit a small oil lamp. The flame flickered softly. His hands trembled as he raised the lamp closer to Lily's face. The light touched her skin. At first nothing happened. Then Lily's body began moving strangely. Her skin shimmered like wet scales. Her eyes opened, glowing bright green. James stumbled backward in horror. Before him, where his wife had been lying, was now a giant serpent glowing under the firelight. And outside the house, far away in the dark forest, the river began roaring like a storm waking from sleep. The serpent lifted its head slowly. Its glowing eyes looked straight at James. Then it spoke in a deep voice that shook the walls of the house. "You have broken the rule." And in that moment, the door of the house burst open as something massive began moving toward them from the darkness outside. James stood frozen in the corner of the room, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. The oil lamp trembled in his hand, and the small flame danced wildly on the walls. On the bed, the giant serpent slowly lifted its long body. Its scales glowed deep green under the firelight, and its eyes burned like two pieces of hot glass. James could barely breathe. Lily," he whispered. The serpent's head tilted slightly, as if it understood the name. For a brief moment the creature's glowing eyes softened. But then the floor of the house began to shake. A deep rumbling sound came from outside, like heavy water crashing against rocks. The serpent's voice filled the room again. You have broken the rule of the deep water." James dropped the lamp. The flame rolled across the floor before dying in the dirt. The room fell back into darkness. But the glowing body of the serpent still lit the house faintly. Outside, the sound of water grew louder and louder. James ran to the door and looked outside. His blood turned cold. The river that was far away in the forest was rising and moving. A long dark shape slid through the trees toward the house. The Snake Queen had come. The giant serpent inside the room slowly began to change. Her body twisted, shrinking, folding into itself. Within seconds, Lily was kneeling on the floor again, breathing heavily. Her long hair fell around her shoulders, but her eyes still glowed faintly green. James stared at her, unable to speak. Tears rolled down Lily's face. "I told you, never to bring fire near me." James stepped back, shaking. You are not human." Lily looked at him with deep sadness. "I was never meant to be." Before James could say anything else, the ground outside shook violently. A massive shadow passed across the doorway. Then the Snake Queen's enormous head slowly appeared in the entrance of the house. Her body stretched endlessly behind her like a dark river. Her scales scraped across the ground as she slid forward. The entire house seemed too small to hold her. James fell to the ground in terror. The Snake Queen's glowing eyes fixed on Lily. "The fire has revealed your true blood," the ancient serpent hissed. "The promise has been broken." Lily stood slowly. Her hands trembled. "No," she said softly. "It was not my fault." The Snake Queen moved closer, her giant head lowering until it hovered above Lily. "The rule was clear. You belong to the river." James finally found his voice. "Wait," he shouted. Both Lily and the Snake Queen turned toward him. James stood up slowly, his legs shaking. "I did not know," he said. "Her sister lied to me." The Snake Queen's eyes narrowed. Human lies are not the concern of the deep water. Lily shook her head desperately. "Please, do not take me." For the first time since she was born, real fear filled her voice. "I want to stay here." The Snake Queen studied her carefully. "You have lived among humans too long," she said slowly. "Your heart has become weak." Tears streamed down Lily's face. James suddenly stepped forward. "If someone must pay for this mistake," he said, "take me instead." The Snake Queen turned her enormous head toward him. "You would give your life?" James looked at Lily. Without hesitation he answered, "Yes." The ancient serpent stared at him for a long moment. Then she began to laugh. The sound was deep and terrible, like thunder rolling through the forest. "You humans are foolish creatures. You break rules you do not understand, then offer sacrifices too late." Suddenly the forest behind the house exploded with movement. Dozens of snakes slithered out of the darkness. Large ones. Small ones. Black ones. Green ones. They surrounded the house like a living carpet. James backed away in horror. The Snake Queen turned again to Lily. "The fire has awakened the truth inside you. There is no return now." Lily felt something strange happening inside her body. Her skin began to shimmer again. Her fingers felt cold. Her heart beat slower and slower. She realized with sudden horror that the serpent blood inside her was growing stronger. She looked at James one last time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. James shook his head desperately. "No, there must be another way." But Lily already knew the truth. The rule had been broken. The river had come to claim what belonged to it. Outside, the sound of rushing water grew louder and louder. The river itself was moving through the forest. And it was coming straight for the house. The ground trembled harder as the sound of rushing water grew louder and louder. Trees in the forest began bending as if something powerful was pushing through them. The river, which had always stayed deep inside the forest, was now moving like a living thing toward the small house. James grabbed Lily's hand. "There must be a way to stop this," he said desperately. But Lily could already feel the change inside her body. Her skin felt colder, and a strange strength moved through her veins. The serpent blood was waking up fully now. "I think it is too late," she whispered. Outside, the dark water finally reached the edge of the house. It spread across the ground like a black mirror under the moonlight. Snakes slithered across the wet earth, surrounding the house from every side. The Snake Queen lifted her massive head and spoke again. "The promise was made long ago. A life was given in exchange for life." Lily closed her eyes. For a moment she remembered everything: her childhood, her mother's frightened eyes, the dark house where no lamp was ever allowed, and the secret her mother had carried for 18 long years. Then she looked at James. "I wish things had been different," she said softly. James shook his head, tears filling his eyes. "I don't care what you are," he said. "You are my wife." But the water was already rising around the doorway. The Snake Queen moved forward slowly. "Come, child of the river." Lily felt the pull of the water like a voice calling from deep inside her heart. The river was no longer just water to her, it felt like home. She turned to James one last time. "Take care of my mother," she said quietly. Before he could stop her, Lily stepped outside into the rising water. The moment her feet touched the river, her body began to glow. Her skin shimmered like silver scales, and her eyes turned bright green again. Slowly she transformed. Where Lily had been standing, a beautiful serpent with shining scales lifted its head beside the Snake Queen. The other snakes bowed their heads as if greeting a new queen. James fell to his knees in the doorway, watching helplessly. The Snake Queen turned once more toward the house. "Humans must remember," she said, her voice echoing across the forest, "that promises made to the spirits are never forgotten." Then the great serpent slid back toward the river, followed by Lily and the countless snakes moving through the water. The rushing river slowly began retreating back into the forest, leaving the ground wet and silent once again. By morning, the river had returned to its normal place. The village woke to rumors of strange sounds during the night, but no one knew the truth. Only James knew. He stood by the forest edge every evening, staring toward the distant river, hoping that one day he might see Lily again. But the river remained silent. And from that day forward, the people of Oakwood never again lit fires near the forest at night. Because deep in the dark water, the new daughter of the river now lived beside the ancient Snake Queen. And everyone in the village remembered the lesson that came with the story: a promise made to the spirit world must never be broken.